I would have waited an eternity for this. It's over, Prime.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Studio Series Leader Class Megatron. Based on the original 1986 animated movie, this is a figure that has been a long time coming, especially after the release of the now legendary Commander Class Optimus Prime, which has now easily become one of the best figures ever made. And the Studio Series line, just in general, has always set the standard of what can be expected from the main line. Take the 86 movie Hot Rod, for example. That figure is so insanely close to how he appeared in the movie that not even the masterpiece could compete. And with the Transformers Siege Megatron now being extremely outdated, it was only a matter of time before we saw an update for the Decepticon leader. So as we whack up an image of how he appeared in the original G1 cartoon, visually he is not only looking to be incredibly close, but also a marked improvement in comparison to the previous Megatron. Honestly, I think that in 2025 we are truly entering the golden age of Transformers. Between this line and Age of the Primes, the design team are now putting out figures that are so good that in the future I really don't see how they'll ever improve. Take the 86 movie Dinobots, for example. They are simply the definition of a mainline masterpiece, and outside of a few hollow joints, are near perfect, with this guy being no exception. The head sculpt and entire upper chest are incredibly faithful to how he appeared in the show, and proportionally I think they nailed it. He is super thin, with the legs being slightly longer to better match up with the actual animation model, and as we spin him around to the back and again compare him to how he appeared on the show, this is surprisingly this figure's most impressive angle. Despite transforming into a tank than as opposed to the more movie accurate Walther P-38, this Megatron looks near identical to the cartoon, and with the exception of some tiny tread detailing on the lower legs, you'd honestly have a hard time figuring out that he does transform into an inaccurate alt mode. The only thing I guess I could really complain about would be the size of his fusion cannon. It does just appear to be slightly too short and would have been much better had it been extendable for both robot and tank mode. I guess you could also argue that the legs are maybe slightly too blue, but to be completely honest, this really does just depend on your lighting. But besides that, this without doubt is the best mainline Megatron figure based on the original G1 cartoon. A fantastic equivalent to the Studio Series Optimus Prime, and will now likely become the gold standard for the character for many years to come. Blasting through the accessories that Megatron includes, up first is his fusion cannon, the back barrel, himself fully transformed into the original Walther P-38, then finally his Energon sword, which means that unfortunately this figure does lack the Energon mace, which despite only appearing in one episode of the original cartoon, has now become arguably as iconic as Optimus Prime's Energon axe, leaving the incredibly elusive Centurion drone weaponizer pack as the only way to really complete his look. With that being said though, I do think that it's quite cool that he does include the Walther P-38, which despite being slightly more animated in its appearance in comparison to the previous version, is actually great, especially for those who aren't too impressed with the figure itself turning into a tank. This can be wielded by almost any of the more recent mainline figures, although is of course suited best with Starscream, especially to recreate arguably one of the more traumatic scenes in the history of Transformers. Then finally, the Energon sword is also a great inclusion, as we do see this early on in the 86 movie during his battle against Optimus Prime. The only thing to really watch out for with this would be the grip that Megatron has on it. To snap this into place requires a ridiculous amount of force, and whilst at the moment nothing seems to be stressed, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if in a few years the thumb does snap clean off. In terms of weapon storage, all of the accessories can be attached onto his back, although to be completely honest, I can't say that this does look the best. Diving into this guy's articulation, due to his incredibly sleek design, he is almost as poseable as what you would expect from a non-transforming Transformer. So to begin with, the head is on a ball joint. This can look up, down, tilt side to side, and rotate left to right. The shoulders can kick forwards, backwards, and completely out to the side. The butterfly joints can crunch in and out. His biceps can spin, with the elbows being able to bend slightly past 90. The hands are ball jointed, and the fingers are incredibly articulated. His waist can spin side to side, with the hips able to kick forwards, backwards, and out to the side, completely uncompromised. The thighs can rotate, with the knees able to bend to 90. Then finally, in addition to the foot being able to kick forwards and backwards, they can also rock inwards. So, an incredibly dynamic Megatron, leagues above in comparison to what we did see from the Transformers Siege version. But to really see the true might of this Megatron, let's now put him through the pose test. Firing through some robot mode comparisons, up first is Megatronus the Fallen, which is surprisingly not a prequel of this guy. The Transformers Siege Megatron, which has definitely served us well over the past few years, but without doubt, there is most definitely a new leader in town. The Bumblebee movie Megatron, Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime, and to kind of go back to my earlier points, we are truly living in the golden age of Transformers. To have these characters look this good to the point where they're almost contending with their masterpiece counterparts is just wild. Leader class Galvatron, which fictionally is supposed to be an upgrade of Megatron, although if I'm being completely honest, kinda looks more like a downgrade. The 86 movie Starscream, which just by comparison is now in a desperate need of an upgrade. Legacy United Soundwave, which if the listings are to be believed, could also be seeing a replacement in the near future. Transformers Siege Shockwave, Voyager class Hot Rod, Ironhide, Deluxe class Devastation Optimus Prime, then finally the 86 movie Bumblebee. Commanding the way into this guy's transformation, from an engineering standpoint, this figure is ridiculously impressive. He's even more involved in comparison to the 86 movie Optimus Prime. So for the first step, pop off the fusion cannon, and do exactly the same for the back barrel. These two will now combine exactly like this, with the back ends of the blaster popping open, which will then allow this section to slide down. We can now take Megatron's forearms and split them directly down the middle, so that his fist can slide inside. With that complete, swing this section around, and then snap these panels back into place. With the same done for the second side, take the bicep and spin this inward, as what you'll now do is slide the shoulder forward until it does pop out of this joint. Spin around to the back and pop this panel open. As stored on the underside is an additional panel. Spin around at the waist until the back now faces the front. You'll then take the chest plate and pop this forward, as this section will slide up, with this panel following closely behind. Now that's complete, slide the head inside and snap this back into place. We can now take the hip skirts and fold them to the front, as what you'll now do is spin down to the legs and pop this panel open, so that we can then pop open the shins, snap these forward, and then slide them back. We can now take the back part of the leg and fold this up, to then extend the treads. You'll now take the feet and flip them around, with the tips snapping into the underside. Then slide the hips back until they do attach into the hip skirts. We can now take the entire upper torso and slide this back, as it will now combine along with the legs. What you'll now do is pop open these panels to deploy the tips of the treads. You'll then want to snap this back up, so that this tab can now slide into the side of the thigh, and do exactly the same for the front end. We can then spin around to the back and pop open this panel to again reveal additional components for the treads, and with the same also completed for the second side, snap this back into place. Take this panel and snap it back, and do exactly the same for these middle panels. Rotate this section all the way around, and do exactly the same for the arms. Then make use out of these multi-layered hinge joints and compress them inwards. With the same done for the second side, take both halves and combine them directly down the middle. Take the arm cannon and slide it into place. Then finally, take the arms and snap these into the center. And that is the transformation now fully complete. Decimating his way through the battlefield of Autobot City, here is Megatron now fully transformed into his tank mode, which, despite not being the more movie-accurate Author P38, as we whack an image of how he appeared in the Transformers Devastation video game, that design instead really does appear to be what this Megatron is loosely based on, and the reason I say loosely is because this form is nowhere near as good as his robot mode, and rightly so, as legally Hasbro unfortunately are unable to have him transform into an actual gun, meaning that the tank really is just an afterthought, and instead of being directly based on one design, is really just made up mostly of leftover Megatron parts. Personally, I'm not really the biggest fan of the mix and match between the back barrel and the fusion cannon. Honestly, I would have much rather had this been extendable, so that it could have looked slightly more complete. I also can't say that the back of the tank looks particularly good, especially when stacked up against the sides and the front, and the rotation of the turret is completely off center, meaning that from certain angles, it honestly just looks kinda ridiculous. In terms of weapon storage though, all of the accessories can be attached throughout to further weaponize Megatron up, and unlike the Bumblebee movie version, this figure can actually roll, giving him the ability to ram his way through his opponents. Racing through some vehicle mode size comparisons, up first is yet again Megatronus the Fallen, the Transformers Siege Megatron, Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime, Voyager class Hot Rod, Ironhide, Deluxe class Devastation Optimus Prime, then finally the 86 movie Bumblebee. So, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Studio Series Leader Class Megatron. When in robot mode, the figure is simply a mainline masterpiece. He looks exactly how he appeared in the original cartoon, even down to the detailing on his back, which honestly is kind of surprising considering what this guy does transform into. The tank mode, whilst is nowhere near as bad as the Bumblebee movie version, I still think could have been better. Unfortunately, in comparison to past Megatron figures, it does kind of pale in comparison, especially when compared to the Combiner Wars version. But let's be honest, the only reason that he really does transform into a tank is because Hasbro had to give him an alt mode due to the legality issues surrounding his original blaster mode. And whilst it may not be the best, it without doubt has really allowed the design team to nail the look of his robot mode, which really is a fantastic equivalent to the 86 movie Optimus Prime. But I would love to know what you guys think of Megatron. Be sure to sound off below and let me know. As always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, I'll see you then. Transform and roll out!